You are listening to the short podcast series, Did COVID Do That? Note this episode contains ASMR-type sounds that may be uncomfortable for some listeners. With that, back to our host, Cheryl.
Thank you, and welcome to Did COVID Do That? In a world where it seems like COVID pandemic memories are fading away, we highlight the researchers who show just how far the tentacles of the COVID-19 pandemic have reached into the obscure parts of life. Today we are learning about a condition called misophonia, and checking out the research to see if COVID-19 influenced it. Misophonia translates literally to hatred of sounds, so to figure out what it is, or understand, let's do a sound experiment. I'll play you some audio, and you try to identify all the sounds that you hear.
So it's looking at now you have to decide between B and C. So the maximum values, the maximum values are 6 and 7, right? So B is correct if we were asking the maximum value, but now we're looking for the index value. All right, so looking at, again.
That is the soundscape of my early morning computer science class. There are keyboards clacking, people coughing, sneezing, backpack zipping, and pens are clicking. It would be hard to focus on the sound of the teacher when there are so many distractions. Though, for some people, picking out the sound of a teacher is even harder. For those with the condition called misophonia, the brain starts to focus very intensely on detecting those less relevant sounds. Instead of focusing in a room like this,
We'll actually also be able to make sure your top hat reflects.
it could feel like trying to focus in a zoo like this. It's frustrating, right? For those with misophonia, brain scans show heightened responses in sensory processing areas like the cortex and insula in response to very specific trigger sounds like chewing, loud clocks, lip smacking, heavy breathing, or coughing. Hearing these trigger sounds leads to emotional consequences such as anxiety, anger, disgust, and avoidant behavior. On top of that, misophonia symptoms can also be physiologically distressing. Your palms grow sweaty, your breathing could go short, your heart speeds up, and in some cases, it physically hurts. Imagine trying to focus in a classroom with those symptoms. Misophonia is often attributed and often diagnosed with other sensory processing disorders like OCD or autism. Though, misophonia can take a while to show up in people, and strong aversion to certain sounds like chewing may be conditioned in people over time by trauma or their surroundings. This made me wonder, in a pandemic of morphing sickness, soundscapes, and total isolation quarantines, how did those with misophonia hold up? There was a 2021 paper published in Frontiers in Psychiatry that tries to answer our question about COVID-19 isolation and misophonia. To answer that question, did COVID affect those with misophonia? Neuroscientist and psychiatrist Lidia Jimenez-Yort at Universidad Autónoma de Barcelona started giving questionnaires to patients at a mental health center where she worked at. In total, Yort and her colleagues tracked 342 adults with and without misophonia from the beginning of 2020 through the summer of that year. These questions mainly tracked patient well-being and feelings. Patients would rate misophonia symptoms like sleep disorders, hypersensitivity, and anxiety. This study also served to track if misophonia patients were coming to the clinic for services more often. Overall, the research found that those with misophonia were coming to the mental health clinic almost 66 times more than pre-pandemic. Participants cited the break in daily schedule, switching up their familiar sounds. They cited the constant noises of family and children. Interestingly, patients also cited the neighbors as issues, particularly a new trend in Spain and Italy that featured neighbors clapping and banging pans on their balconies. As for misophonia symptoms, the researchers found that feelings of hostility, anxiety, and sleep disorders increased significantly. The researchers put effects of isolation in the subtitle, calling it a Molotov cocktail for people with misophonia. Well, misophonia symptoms seem to be way worse for folks nowadays. Did COVID do that? It sure looks like COVID-19 did negatively impact misophonia patients. More research is needed to see the longer-term effects of the pandemic on misophonia, but for now we have the mental image of a Molotov cocktail to rely on to understand the short-term effects of COVID-19 on misophonia. Another big thing misophonia researchers cite is the importance of tolerance of symptoms in misophonia patients. We could all be a little more cognizant of the sounds we are making. So, if you ever consider scarfing down at breakfast in a classroom or meeting as we head back to work and school, consider closing your mouth and chewing slower. A special thanks to Matt Oakley, Team 9, and Helisna CC0 for providing the Creative Commons music on the Free Music Archive. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you later this week.